Newcastle United 1, Barcelona 2, and you would not believe that this is the first match that these two have played in the Champions League so far this season. This felt like a Champions League semi-final, probably my favourite match of the season so far. It had this perfect blend of modern intensity but also technical quality, two contrasting styles that made for just this amazing battle. So we will start off with Newcastle because they started the match on the front foot and were absolutely brilliant for the first 20 minutes or so. They were electric. The atmosphere, again, just insane. St James's Park was mental last night. But the quality, the approach, the aggression from Newcastle was really good. We know that Barcelona, in true Barcelona fashion, will always want to move the ball from the back. They want to play out from the back, they want to keep the ball, and they want to move through the pitch. Newcastle are a team that don't want to let the opposition do that, which is where we're talking about contrasting styles, and we know that Newcastle are going to squeeze incredibly high up the pitch to put Barcelona under pressure. And when I say squeeze high up the pitch, I mean go man to man, which is insanely brave considering the personnel that Barcelona have. So what we're going to see is Alanga on the right hand side, of course, comes onto the fullback. Then Gordon, the striker, comes onto one of the centre backs. We are then going to see Harvey Barnes, one of the wingers, also coming inside onto a centre back. In midfield, Newcastle are going to match up man to man, like we can see here, 3 versus 3. But you may have noticed that Koundé appears to be the free man on the right hand side. Well, I guess initially he was. When the ball was over here, they let Koundé stay there. However, the second the ball threatened to come towards this side of the pitch, Livramento was then released. He would leave his left-back position, he would go flying forward to the left wing, Dan Burn would shift across, and Newcastle are now man-to-man with Barcelona everywhere on the pitch. Now, first things first, Eddie Howe deserves a lot of credit for this. It takes some serious courage to play man-to-man against this Barcelona team, but we can see it here. Lots of Newcastle players over on the right-hand side engaging in the press, and you can see they sort of are responsible for one player each. But as the ball gets switched to the far side, Koundé may have a bit of time, you may think he's in space, but no, Livramento is coming forward to put him under pressure. Credit to Livramento and his athleticism to be able to do this. And this was a common thing that we saw, it wasn't a one-off. We've got the same here, Joel Linton picking up a midfielder, the two Newcastle forwards, the striker and the left winger squeezing high on the press, but Koundé is the free man, or at least he is until Livramento comes along and closes him down. This is really good pressing from Newcastle. But Newcastle have a problem, or they have two problems actually. Their names are Pedri and Frenkie de Jong, two of the best midfielders on the planet. Now, the reason why Frenkie de Jong and Pedri were such big problems is because they are just simply ridiculous at football. Their tempo control, their technical ability is just off the charts. Two of the most technical players on the planet. Two of the only midfielders on the planet that could go to St James's Park, play against that high press and come out on top, despite not, in theory, having the physicality to really match Newcastle. Their technical quality was special, and what they did very early on was grabbed hold of the game and sort of changed the flow of things. Early on, Newcastle were amazing with their pressing. They were putting Barcelona under pressure. But when these two got on the ball, problems started to form. We can see it here. The intelligence of the two in midfield. Frenkie de Jong sort of acts as like a decoy as this ball is coming across the pitch. He doesn't actually want to go towards the ball. He's dummying it. He's a decoy so that Pedri can pick the ball up. And the reason why this is effective is because we can see Pedri, if we just mark him over here, is actually coming from the far side of the pitch. So he's not starting in a right midfield position. He's starting on the left and drifting across. And this is effective because it means he can get away from the Newcastle player. Because at that point, you know, as the pressing Newcastle player, you might be a little bit hesitant. It's Guimaraes on this occasion. He's a right-sided central midfielder. He doesn't want to go too far, and it allows Pedri to buy himself this little bit of space. And Pedri with space is quality. He moves the ball forward. You can see the Barcelona hold-up play is good. They release Frenkie de Jong, and then Frenkie de Jong is moving the ball forward. Now, I don't want to say Frenkie de Jong and Pedri were dominant in this match, but between them, they had 209 touches of the football, and just look at their pass map. This was their football match, and it really, for me, raises an interesting question. I am a person that will always focus on the physicality of players. I think, particularly in midfield, particularly in English football, it's really important to physically compete. But what we saw here was seemingly a physically inferior team outplaying Newcastle, and it really got me thinking, is technical the way forward? I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Is that technical ability more important than the man-to-man pressing and the physical ability? Let me know what you guys think. Now, of course, with these two really taking control in midfield, it started to force Newcastle to defend a little bit deeper. You can't press super high up the pitch if the midfielders for the opposition are just destroying you. So eventually Newcastle move into a deeper position and they move into the 4-5-1 shape, as we can see here and also here. The problem for me with this shape, and it's always a problem for Newcastle, they always seem to do this, is the 5 across the middle, so that's the 2 wingers and the 3 central midfielders, they always feel incredibly flat. Often what we will see is a staggered approach, both defensively and offensively. We will see teams play with a stagger in the middle of the pitch. What Newcastle do is they play incredibly flat. Now, to give them credit, they play really close to each other. It's really difficult to find those gaps through. But when you've got Pedri and De Jong, 2 master manipulators, 2 players that are brilliant at just disguising their play, so you think they're going to play this way, so you just gamble across a little bit, and that opens up the space in between the lines. Now Newcastle have got a problem, because Barcelona can receive the ball inside the pitch, and of course from there they can cause problems. Now I guess if we're being fair to Eddie Howe and his approach for this match, you probably get away with this against most opposition, because it is compact, but you don't against Barcelona, because Pedri is too good. Now, apologies for the quality of these next few screenshots. I got them from a compilation which was amazing, so I will leave it linked in the description down below. A compilation of some of Pedri's play. He was just phenomenal. And, you know, you can see the flat Newcastle 5 and you can see Pedri exploiting it. These passes through the line, allowing Barcelona to get into these positions, were just relentless in this match. Pedri again picks the ball up, fires the ball through the lines, and now you can see how Barcelona can combine in the final third. And this is why Newcastle started to have problems, because the Barcelona midfield grabbed this game by the neck and just took the technical level just through the roof. Absolutely absurd talent on display, and their ability to combine in tight spaces is a joke. Now, obviously, this also had a sort of knock-on effect with the rest of the team as well. For Newcastle, if their midfield was being bypassed, then the line behind them, the defensive line, was also forced to be a bit more narrow. So Trippier and Livramento, rather than playing out wide as proper fullbacks, they were tucked right in with their back four, like we can see from Trippier here. Really narrow with his positioning in his defensive third. The problem is, this now leaves a little bit of room out wide. If the fullbacks are tucked narrow, you do have access to your 2 wingers. And when your wingers are Rafinha and Marcus Rashford, that's potentially a problem, because these two on their day are 2 of the best forwards on the planet, right? When they get going, when they're confident, when they're dribbling at people, they are seriously dangerous. And Rashford in particular was really accessible in this game. In total, he had 64 touches across his cameo on the pitch, which is insane for a winger. That's a seriously high volume of touches. Now, to give Trippier credit, for large parts of the match, he really dealt with it. He really did well in his battle against Marcus Rashford. But as the game went on, Barcelona really asserted their dominance. We saw Rashford and Rafinha both playing a little bit more central. We saw the fullbacks for Barcelona committing a little bit further up the pitch. And suddenly what Barcelona had, if we just mark this out, was lots of players in the middle here who are all given the freedom to sort of rotate and combine with each other. So Rashford in moments is going to be on the left, but then he'll be on the right. We know the midfielders can move further forward. They all start blending together and combining, with Lewandowski spearheading the attack as well. It's eventually going to cause a problem. Now, of course, the first goal, the header from Marcus Rashford, was really good, but this next one is just different gravy. And what's so amazing about this is that it's 1-0 at the time, so Newcastle are very much in the match. And Marcus Rashford picks the ball up now in the middle of the pitch. He throws the dummy left, so you can see initially he throws his body weight as though he's going to go left. What he then does is shifts back right. Now, first of all, this is impressive agility, the ability to change direction at speed. However, it is going to put you a little bit off balance, you would have thought. If you've thrown left and then gone right, you can imagine a player could potentially be a little bit disorientated. What Rashford does is he then moves towards the right-hand side. He takes a relatively heavy touch here towards the right, and at this moment in time, Newcastle will feel safe. They've got their whole back four, we can see, super narrow here, but all between Rashford and the goal, plus they've got a midfielder putting them under pressure, plenty of other players nearby. Newcastle should be perfectly safe. The problem is, against a game breaker, you are never safe. And Marcus Rashford, when he's on it, is a game breaker. A game breaker is a player who breaks the flow of a game. It doesn't matter who's got the momentum or what type of football match you're watching. Players like this have the ability to change everything, to flip it on its head, to change the state of the game. At 1-0, this was a tight game. This was close. But Marcus Rashford has that ability to pick the ball up and just knuckle one in from outside the penalty area. And almost destroy the confidence of Newcastle. Now, Newcastle did eventually get back into the game with a late goal, but after that they failed to really push on, and again, that was because of Barcelona's ability to control the tempo. And I got to say, watching that Barcelona performance, watching the way that they sort of eventually understood the Newcastle high press and then exploited it, before then exploiting the low block, was really, really enjoyable to watch. I think the technical level on display was probably clear of anything that I have watched so far this season. It was truly just enjoyable to watch as a football fan. I am also a big fan of Marcus Rashford, so to see him getting the 2 goals just made me happy. It's honestly up there with the happiest I've been this season, and I don't like Barcelona. You know, I'll be honest, I don't like Barcelona, but that football was just a joy to watch. Even as a hater of Barcelona, I can admit that that was just simply incredible. I loved watching it, and this Barcelona team are a serious force this season. This was without Yamal. Yeah, this Barcelona team can win the Champions League if they want to. Will they? I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. It's going to be a very, very long season. This was just the first match, but it was a seriously impressive one against very difficult opposition. Newcastle deserve credit for the boldness of their approach, but Barcelona were ultimately just too good, so they deserved all 3 points, and that is what they got. So, yeah. That is all for today's video. Barcelona deserved the win. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, and also get your notifications on so you don't miss future videos. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.